Yeah, I'd like to have a short video and talk about the immigration situation that we have in this country right now. Um, I'm not talking about immigrants from India or I'm not talking about terrorists right now that are trying to sneak into the country. But what I'm going to talk about is uh, immigrants from south of the border. And I think that this is the immigration situation that everybody is always talking about. They're always talking about, building a fence all the way along the border of Mexico and everything else. And all of that is just ludicrous. I'm making this because I have a situation. I'm a general contractor in California. And I find it hard to compete with a lot of the fellas out there doing business right now because they're employing fellas who are undocumented and they're not paying them workman's compensation insurance. They're not paying them taxes, and they're paying them underneath the table. And so I can't compete with them. I operate completely honestly with workman's compensation insurance. I pay taxes, insurances, and overhead. And when I'm paying over 40% on top of my labor costs. And when I bid against guys who don't do that, I can't compete. For every $100 I pay out to an employee for labor, I'm paying over $40 for the overhead amounts to pay for his taxes and insurance and everything. So as you see, I have a vested interest in trying to get this thing changed. Now I'm going to tell you something. I'm a general contractor and I've worked on construction sites many years, and I worked side by side with many fellas from Mexico, uh, and I know a lot of them were undocumented. They weren't on my crew. They were working for other people who happened to be on the job site. It's not anyone's responsibility to check their immigration status other than the contractor who's using them. Therefore, and I know these fellas aren't documented. I've spoken to many of them before. These are great guys. They're very hard workers. 99.9% of them have families. They just work very, very hard. But the problem is that they are not documented. So these fellows are getting paid under the table. Now, when work is plentiful, the borders attract a lot of people who want to come in here and they want to work. And so they come up here and they try to make a better life for themselves, and nobody can blame them for that. Now the thing is, when you have employers who are willing to put them to work, it creates a situation where it attracts them up here. Now, if we would just cut out the hypocrisy and make it so that these people could come and work here, and then we tax them, we charge workman's compensation for them, and we do everything else, then all the employers are going to be in a level playing field up here. I'm going to be able to compete, and we're going to be able to take care of a lot of social problems because these guys are going to be paying into the system, and people will be paying into the system and taking care of their insurances and their taxes instead of getting paid underneath the table. Now, they talk about amnesty, and they talk about these people who have been breaking the law. Well, now we need to get this straight. The biggest criminals here are the people who are condoning this and the people who are using these fellows as, labor and paying them and employing them. These are the guys who are really breaking the law. There's, every place you look, there's undocumented immigrants from Mexico working. The people who are cleaning houses out there as maids, they're by and large undocumented. The landscaping services that are taking care of people's yards, construction companies, drive down the highway and you'll see plenty of people out picking crops. These are obviously undocumented immigrants. Now, the thing is that this is where the hypocrisy is. Everyone is watching this. Everyone drives right by the highway and they know that the people over there picking those crops are undocumented. And then yet they complain about immigration and policy. Now, the situation is this. What you need to do is you need to, first of all, there needs to be, I'm going to tell you right now, there needs to be amnesty given. Amnesty needs to be given to two different groups. And I don't know if it's right or not, but it's the only way you're going to solve this problem. And that's going to be you're going to have to give amnesty to the people who are up here. They talk about fining them $5,000 or something like that and trying to get them into the workforce. That's ludicrous. These people do not have $5,000. You can't put them into the poverty hole right off the bat and try to charge them $5,000 a pop. Who's going to get that money anyway? The government's going to graft in corruption that $5,000 in the first place. You can't charge these people $5,000. You also have to give amnesty to all of the companies who have been employing them. There has to be a certain amnesty period set up, or else these people are not going to admit that they've had these guys. If they have to worry about getting audited for their past payroll for the last however many years they've been doing it, and if they admit that they've had these people working for them or that they would like to have them working for them if any kind of a program starts, they're not going to do it. Because if they know that if they get audited for taxes and workman's compensation for as long as they've had these guys working for them, they're going to go out of business. And that's got to be given to them. The government needs to step up and say, okay, we're going to give you about a 4 or 6 month period where everyone on your crew, if they're already working for you, we're going to give them a work card. We're going to let them work here. And we want you to start taking taxes out, workman's compensation out. We're going to give you a 4 month to 6 month window to take this into account. Now, don't tell me that we can't give them a number to work, because if we can have automated systems set up where they can check your driver's license on the highway and know immediately if you're a felon or whatever, then definitely this could be checked out if they have a work number that they could be verified. Now, people need to have a time where they can say, yes, these people work for us. We'd like them to work for us. We're going to get legal with them, and we're going to sign them up in the work program. After 4 to 6 months, everyone needs to know that if they get caught, and there needs to be some good policing of this, if they get caught employing anyone who's not documented as far as being registered and they're paying workman's compensation and taxes, that they are fined so badly, with no exception, that they will be put out of business. I guarantee you that there won't be a market for the labor unless they've already got their job. Now, this is going to immediately stop the flow across the border, because right now, if there's a promise of work up here, then what's going to happen is if there's a promise of work, everyone comes up and they say, sure, their cousin will come up, their aunt will come up, their uncle will come up, and they'll say, stay at my place till you get a job. You can contribute to the house when you get your work, and then you can find your own place. Well, I'll tell you what, if there's no work for someone who's not documented through this program, then they aren't going to be inviting their relatives up to work, because they know they can't find work. They know there is no work if there's a real buckling down on top of people who do this. And therefore, they will say, I'm sorry, I can't afford to have you come up and live at my home, because there's no work for you here. And there's not going to be any work here, because now they're really cracking down on the employers. Now, if you crack down on the employers and you stop the work, everybody that's up here right now, don't be deporting people who are up here right now unless they don't have any work. If they haven't got any work and if they can't get themselves work, you won't have to deport them. They'll leave on their own. They won't be able to survive. They will go back to Mexico. If there's no work, the people who are up here who have good gainful employment, they're going to stay, because they're going to be able to legally stay up here. They're going to be able to get driver's licenses. They're going to be able to operate a motor vehicle with insurance. They're going to be able to pay their taxes. Their employers are going to pay their taxes. All the employers are on a legal playing field. But I'll tell you what, the hypocrisy is that you have some very large companies who are employing these people, and they don't want it like that, because they would have to pay more for them. And so the hypocrisy goes on and on. You've got politicians who are in these guys' pockets, and they don't want to, they talk about it. They always talk big and loud about it, but they don't really want to correct it. Make sure that anybody that's here that has a work right now, make sure that they're registered and have them go legal, 4 to 6 months. Any employer who's caught any time after that, the penalties are so severe that it will knock their socks off. You will not have people employing anyone who's not documented. This will solve the problem of immigration. You don't need to build a fence. You would hardly need a border crossing, because if there's no work and no way to make a living, no one's going to come up here. It's common sense. This is common sense. Why don't they fix it? Get rid of the hypocrisy. They need to give amnesty. They have to give amnesty to 2 different people. And remember, the people who are up here right now working, these are not the criminals that we should be dealing with. If you want to point a finger and say who's been breaking the law, all the people who are pointing a finger at the people coming up from Mexico are saying they broke the law, they came into the country. Well, they did. But let me put it this way. The people who are really breaking the law are the people up here who are capitalizing on them, they're employing them, and they're keeping this merry-go-round going on and on and on. So let's get rid of the hypocrisy, document everybody that's here. You will never have a problem again if they enforce the rules. Simple as that.